cut, and they need that crimp on that string.
So what is appropriate for homeowners? Yeah. Is true.
Well, you know,
Got all the I can believe it. I can believe it. Make any notes.
Anything you gotta do, anything you gotta do.
Turned out you were
That's one of my.
Just had 2 entries. It was Marsh.
There's a lot of paperwork to go through.
That is the cutest little
Used to be a
thing.
restaurant.
Yeah, the
Many
cobblestone
years ago.
ordinary.
Yeah.
Had the best cheesecake ever was.
I went about there yesterday. Had a good look at it.
It's ready.
It's beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Candy.
Well, I mean,
I'd like to-
I'm looking at the structure.
No, you're good. I'd like to welcome everybody to the February 7th, 2018 meeting of the Historic Preservation Review Board. This committee is appointed by the town council. One member of the council sits on the committee to uphold the old and historic guidelines that were passed by the town of Abingdon. The town of Abingdon was actually one of the first in the state of Virginia back in the 70s to recognize that historic homes and portions of towns need to be protected. These guidelines were enacted at that time, and then the town council established a committee to review any work on structures being done within the OH district. With that said, I again want to welcome you all, and Mr. Boswell, if you will, call the roll, please.
Mr. Weaver?
Here.
Ms. Patterson?
Here,
Mr. Beasley?
Here.
Mr. Neese? Here. Mr. Johnson?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We're going to go right down the agenda this evening. The first item is the approval of the minutes from the January 3rd meeting. I trust the board has had an opportunity to review these. Does anyone have any corrections or additions?
Didn't see anything.
Hearing none, I would ask for a motion that these be approved as presented.
Make a motion that they be approved as presented.
Have a motion, second.
Second.
Motion and second. Mr. Boswell.
Mr. Weaver? Aye. Ms. Patterson?
aye.
Mr. Beasley? Aye. Mr. Neese? Aye. Mr. Johnson?
Aye. The first item, second item on the agenda is a certificate of appropriateness for Mr. Stanley. Got representatives, Mr. and Mrs. Watson. If you all would, just step up to the podium, tell us a little bit about what you've got planned. Should have some pictures that we could try to follow along that Mr. Boswell could pull up. Your list, somewhat of a long list.
There's some pictures.
Okay. In the COA, you've attached just a list of items that you all are going to be addressing. Yeah, with your permission, we can just go down that list, and you can tell us a little bit about it. First item was the exterior of the home be painted, same color.
It probably be the same color, and I found out right before I came this afternoon. I'm not for sure if you all are familiar with him, Johnny Bundy. His aunt used to live in the house, and I spoke with him right before we came, and he said that he's like, I think 75 years old, he said, and as long as he remembered, the house was always white, it was never brick. So I guess with that being said, we are planning on leaving it white,
Okay,
just putting a fresh coat of paint on that.
all right. Do you know what paint Sherwin-Williams, do you have any samples or anything of that nature?
We actually didn't bring any samples because we were just kind of going to see what we could do, what we couldn't do. We can always bring samples if it's Sherwin-Williams or whatever. We can go with that. That won't be a problem.
It helps in that there's no confusion then
Right.
as to, whenever the structure is painted,
Mhm.
staff has a record.
That's
Saying,
right.
well, wait a minute, this either looks, exactly like it is, or there's a variation.
Mhm.
So if you can provide a sample.
Okay, it's just no certain color white that you're aware of, just a white.
Correct.
Okay.
Whatever you plan, as long as it's white, the existing color, that's permitted under the guidelines.
Okay.
So you just need to follow that up with a sample to
Okay.
staff.
Mhm.
The next item were shutters.
I spoke with him regarding that. I've called the library, I've called the Historic Society. I've talked to numerous people, and I actually asked Mr. Bundy this afternoon, and he said that this time he did not have any pictures. He wasn't aware of any family that had pictures, that he would ask his daughter this afternoon. But he said, to his recollection, that the house had shutters.
It would be
But I
unusual.
can't provide pictures.
Well,
I don't know where else to go.
no, you all are planning to put shutters up though, aren't you?
We would like to. And I think that picture, I think it has shutters. And of course, we're aware it has to be wood and certain types.
Yes.
You would be able to tell if it had shutters in the past because they'd actually have hardware bolted in beside each window. The way that house, when it was built, would have had wood shutters that would have been attached to the brick with hardware, but I mean, if there's no.
Probably have some, I haven't been close.
We haven't.
Probably be
Modern
shutters in
shutters.
it where they would attach it to the brick and
Yeah.
to hold it, but I haven't looked that close.
And
But
you would probably have hardware left after the shutters probably.
So if we can't find the hardware, that's a no on the shutters, or?
I'm just throwing it in.
Well, what the guidelines say is that, if there were original shutters, then you can put shutters on, and if there weren't, then you shouldn't. And then if you do put shutters on, they're supposed to be actual wooden shutters, not, vinyl or plastic things that are just put on the side. So I guess the first issue would be.
I would like to have shutters, and I could do wood.
If you could, if you have any indication, I guess John seems to recall that it did have shutters. but-
He said that it did. I'm not for sure. He said that he would speak with his daughter tonight and call me back, so I'm not for sure about that. It
But
could
you're
or
not
could
looking to
not.
see if there's any indication on the building if there were shutters?
We've been to the house and everything, but I mean, we haven't had a ladder to go up the side of it or anything like that.
Right.
we'd like to bring it back
Yeah, that'd be.
as close to as original as possible. It's in a kind of terrible state at this point.
That's great that you're doing that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, it's
Our-
good.
Bad.
Our hopes for it would be 7 apartments, completely gutting the inside, new sheetrock, new wiring, do as much as, make it as safe as it can be, brand new appliances, brand new cabinetry. We hope we can at least have one of the apartments have a 2-bedroom, but most of them's gonna be 1 bedroom. The outside, I know with this is gonna be something we have to have approved through you all, and we'll keep it as whatever the board wishes on that. But, as you look at the picture there, it's, you know, the wires, the downspouts coming down the side of the building. Those type of things, the windows, we'd just like to bring it back to something that would look, that the town would be proud of, and we'd be proud of fixing it up.
Can't tell if any hardware's on that.
Our goal is to have, in the end of this, is of a high-end renter. It won't be any type of people in it that,
It's there now.
you know, there are some renters there that are decent, and then some not so much. But, you know, we want to bring it to a level where we're going to invest a lot of money on this, and we expect our properties to be, you know, taken care of. And, you know, we have 10 in the town of Lebanon right now, and this is an opportunity for us to come over this way and do something for, you know, the right people. And it's an investment on their part.
Yeah, would the shutters, I'm assuming, be one of the last items, something of that nature that you may undertake? And the reason I'm asking is the guidelines typically state that, you know, unless there's physical, photographic, or other evidence, really shouldn't be added. I'd be surprised if the building didn't have shutters at one time, but you can find some, if John can come up with a photo or something of that nature, or there should be, like Andrew stated, if shutters were there in the brick, you're going to see holes or hardware. You know, if you could provide just a little evidence of that, then you are permitted to go with wood shutters, you know, and put it back up. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Do you know what year the house was built?
I'm thinking 1924.
And that style actually never did shutters. So
Never did.
I'd be surprised if it did have shutters, because with a double window, the shutters would have to be so wide, and the operable shutters would always be wide enough to totally close the opening.
Should be.
So you'd have, you know, you have double windows and you have a single, so you'd have
Right.
a weird kind of shutter thing on,
The
because
size.
the double windows would have to have shutters that cover that, and then the small single window would have either a really
One
small
window.
shutter on either side or a big shutter on one. I mean,
Right.
It is no
I'm not
problem
for
if we
sure. I
don't
mean,
put
that's-
shutters on it.
That's really no big deal.
It's no big deal.
Okay.
We were just kind of going by what he said, but like I said, I really don't think he's going to be able to provide photographs, but I'm not sure.
a lot of times too, like the hinges they would put on my house are in the wood on the
Mhm.
side of the wood that is the wood frame,
Mhm.
and they notch those out, so if you can see notches there where that hinge was either, you know, put into the wood or nailed into the wood. So there might be some, I mean, if there were shutters, there should be some kind of indication that were shutters.
That it was something there. Okay.
The next item was actually windows. Are the windows original to the structure, or are those been replaced?
I think those are
They
actually
look original.
but they're not in good
They're
shape.
put out. They provide no insulation to the building whatsoever. A lot of it's broken out panes, and you can see they're not even operable. They're a hazard. I'm sure from lead paint content that's on them. Plus, you know, with the ones that do raise, they're sticking something in it to keep it held open, which is a hazard for any tenant that would be in it.
What do you, on your application, you stated all windows will be replaced with vinyl white or black windows. Are you talking about vinyl clad wood windows, or trying to redo? I mean, any windows within the historic district, the guidelines specify, you know, first is try to repair. If they're beyond repair, then there are other options, such as go back with true divided light, same pattern that was there. Wood windows, and, you know, they can be vinyl clad. Is that what you all are
We're
referencing?
wanting a vinyl window, and you could tell how the top has the grids that come down. You order them just like that. That would be to look like that style, but the outside would be a vinyl pane window.
Well, you know, this has kind of been an ongoing issue that comes up a lot here, as you might imagine. And, you know, replacing windows is heavily frowned upon unless they absolutely cannot be repaired. And the reason for that is, you know, that's one of the most significant features of these historic buildings. And if you go in and start taking out windows and doors and putting new ones in, then pretty soon you just have a brick shell that is that's the fabric of the historic building, and then all these new replacements. So I know when we redid our building, I mean, the windows, half of them were missing in places, and so we had to have, you know, we were able to repair almost everything in there, and honestly, they were in a lot worse condition than what you see here. And I know that's going to be difficult and expensive, but I think you're really going to be a lot happier after you're done if you get them repaired and keep them than the look of a new window. You know, we have a tax credit. Have you applied for the tax credit, tax abatement? And the reason that this board asked for that to be passed was recognizing that it's a hardship on people to put the money into these buildings, and then we're asking them to do things that are going to cost more and be hard to do. But you know, we're a historic preservation board, so it's our job to keep these things there, keep the doors, keep the windows there. So if there's any way at all to repair them, that's what we're charged with making happen.
I've looked at the windows, and I personally have done this work for numerous years, and I don't see any way to repair those windows. They're rotted. All this area right here is completely just rotted out. As you can tell, when you look at the windows, the grids and stuff are just, I don't know how you would repair them. I don't see any way that they could be repaired.
A millwright. I'll give you the name, there's millwrights do it. Manufacturers that do in town. And they'll take the component parts of the window, they'll salvage what they can, they'll make the rest of it back together for you. And they'll also do all the surrounds on it too.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you can't get replacements for money, sashes, everything else that's part of that window. If you needed to be replaced, you could.
$800.
And not only that, afterwards, you can add a picture window on top of it.
Glasses
That's,
about
we allow actually, it's kind of a storm window that doesn't take away from the look of it, and it protects the windows so that you won't have to worry about them again. Basically.
So would somebody come out and tell us that, yes, they're able to be repaired, no, they're not, or who is that left up to?
Would that person come out and look at the windows?
Yeah. Yep, sure. Yeah, it's Abingdon Mill, they're over on Lowry Drive.
Abingdon Millworks?
They did the ones down.
So
at the
that's
train
someone
station,
that you all
train
approve
station.
of?
I mean, my house.
And repairing those, probably, it's gonna be,
He said 800 a window.
Well, that's what it ran to me. So I don't know what it would be, you know. And that's what, you're looking at inside trim, outside trim, look at windows. If you go to TDLs, divided lights, you go ahead and do that. You don't lose, there's a new thing about the Department of Interior, windows and what to do and how to do it. So you might want to look at the Department of Interior guidelines on windows. It's real good. And you don't lose that much on insulation from windows, not having thermal. It's used like 18% is what you lose out of it, So it's not as significant as you would think.
Appreciate it. Information.
those are 3/1 if you talk.
Right.
Okay, so let me ask you all, do you want to table the windows and then come back,
We can do that, and in the meantime, then we can talk to these
further
people.
research it? Okay. The roof, you all got, we'll be just with a charcoal or black metal with standing seam and snow breaks. What do you?
We're just kind of waiting to see what you say.
What the guidelines say is, a standing seam roof. If it's got, original materials such as metal shingles and standing seam, R-type profile, is not permitted. 5B profile may be allowed only if they're original. I think that's actually got shingles on it, doesn't it, right now?
It does.
When I went by, that's what I recall, right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the addition.
Yeah.
That one's like 60.
It's all this sheet on the front end of that.
I know you specified metal, because you have shingles right there, possibility as well for you. That's up to you all. You can go back with what is there right now, a newer style, or go with the metal. If the metal, then it's standing seam. So, do you want to go with the metal or?
Either one's acceptable to us, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it's got it already, so they're repairing and replacing it.
Yeah. Cheaper for us to do shingles versus the metal. Standing seam, you get into a whole lot more cost on that. And if you're looking at getting into the windows, and you're talking $800, we can look at how many thousands of dollars.
What were replacement windows gonna cost?
You can buy a replacement window, probably that size, for somewhere around $250 per window, a vinyl window. That's
With the 3/1, because we've purchased those for
Yeah,
a
we-
previous house that we've
sometimes
remodeled.
you have to,
I've got it.
yeah, so, but,
I don't think vinyl's allowed in the historic district.
we're.
Vinyl clad wood is a lot more than the vinyl, so it starts bridging the gap between the two.
Right.
And so you're interested in shingles?
More likely, yeah.
Okay. Well,
So if
why
we
don't
do shingles, what type shingles can we do?
What does it have on?
Would it have to be exactly what was on it? Would it be kind of like architect shingles or what?
No,
I'm
you
sorry?
Oh, I was saying that's what I was gonna ask. What kind do you want?
I can't, is there a picture of it that shows what's on there?
Probably just has 3 tabs.
Is that just
I
three
think it's
tabs?
just
I'd say 3 tab is what's on it.
Yeah.
Our
So
problem is
whatever's
that-
on it is what we need to
You
go
can
back
re-
to.
You can repair or replace with light, rather, with what's on it.
Replace with what's on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Prior to doing that, though, we need a sample.
Samples,
Yes,
right,
ma'am.
that's fine. Mhm.
So,
The industries keep coming up with all these new products, and we can't keep up with really
That's-
dealing with, that's an issue.
Right, that's fine, and like I said, we're just kind of here to try to figure out what we can do.
Yes, ma'am.
What's acceptable, what isn't, and then we can
Well,
do
and again-
samples, and that's not a problem.
Yeah.
thank you all for
I know, thank you so much for
undertaking
doing
this.
Maybe. I will say maybe. I've got my banker here.
Thank you.
This is kind of a fact-finding thing for me, to be honest with you, on how much I can invest in this and make this work.
Did you factor in the tax credit? Were you aware that there is a tax
Yes.
credit?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay.
But, if it's gonna get to the point where
Yeah,
it's,
make a return.
I'm not making any return,
true.
I'm walking.
Have
That's just-
have you looked up beyond just the tax credit for the town taxes from us with regard to federal and state tax credits? Because this is gonna be an income producing property for you, so you'll have to submit your plan to, unless things have changed, to Virginia Department of Historic Resources and also to Department of Interior. But, there used to be pretty healthy income tax credits for you for restoring historic property like this and doing it, but, it's more approval from different agencies. They're gonna tell you the same things we're telling you. they're not gonna let
Right.
you take out windows and put new windows, they're not gonna let you,
Right.
but there are a lot of tax incentives for doing it, so,
Up to 45 cents per dollar.
yeah.
Because we look into it with ours, and if you're doing it for apartments, there's lots of Virginia state and federal state credits. If you're doing it as a private house, there's very little.
Right, gotcha.
But all this is gonna be
You can
income
pick
producing
up-
for you all.
you can pick up a
So,
big
yeah,
chunk.
I mean, so you can really max those credits, so it'd be worth your while. I mean, if you're gonna look at it economically, be sure to factor all that into it.
Exterior doors.
Well, we could use the doors that's there, that, fix those up and keep those original. If, when you get into a door like the one, go back up just a little bit,
It's the one on the side.
you can see this door here, which is a new door,
Mhm.
versus the other one. They do make a door identical to this one. I just purchased one, but on another property that looks identical to this one, and it's like $595. But now it's a.
But it isn't wood.
It is a fiberglass door, but it has the same,
Wood grain.
yeah, it's got the wood grain look and everything. It's identical to that door there. But a lot of the doors, they're,
There's a couple doors that I don't know that we could,
I don't know if they're,
the one on the back. I mean, if we,
Here knows.
if we can use them, then we are.
Barry built, has a door, a wooden door making shop.
Okay.
So they can match what you want.
So it's the same rule, do you have to preserve the original doors, you can't replace them, but if you've got a new door that's not original, then of course you can replace it, and it's preferred to be replaced with an actual wooden door.
Right.
Yeah.
I understand.
And if Barry's can replace it, that shouldn't be a problem, because I think it's too good to be replaced.
I'm just trying to make some notes as we're going down. When we get to the bottom, it sounds like we're only going to be approving a couple items, and then you all
That's fine.
got some homework.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
To go back and
that's
do.
fine.
Okay. The landscaping, with the lighting around the house, what did you all have in mind? I think you've got,
I think the only thing that we got there is just some uplighting, just clear. I mean, if possible, like I said, that's no big idea, no big deal. They just said that when we did the application, just to put some things in there, maybe,
as long as it's ground level, things of that nature.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
If you look on the pictures there, like the
It's 23.
concrete stoops and stuff like that, all broken. And when you go around another apartment, people have been walking through the yard, and it's just kind of mud trails where they walk around, especially to this side, there's an apartment on this side. So if you come down the sidewalk here, a lot of people's walking by this tree and stuff. We just like to landscape it to where they'd have their own walkway to go into their apartment.
And I think with that walkway, and you might can see it in this picture, like it is an apartment here, if we could do the same as we do the front entrance, the little covered porch.
The dormers.
It's actually just the porch there, and I guess pea gravel or something has to go around there. I mean, is that gonna be an
Pea
issue
gravel.
with anything like that?
Pea gravel, brick, or really concrete. You know,
Concrete, okay.
All of those.
Okay.
We just need to know.
Which one we're gonna do?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
As far as your lighting, if you want an example, Goodman Jewelers, Mark did some lighting around on
Okay.
the sidewalk and things of this
At
nature.
Goodman's?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we walk
Okay.
by that, it looks really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we just haven't been by there in the dark.
You mentioned pea gravel, brick, and concrete for the sidewalk. The same applies for driveway. Like-
Right, and probably for the driveway, we were thinking probably cement or something like that, but one of the three, and I guess that just kind of goes back, we can decide and let them know for sure.
Yeah. Make some notes here.
I guess the other question too is like the HVAC units. We'd like to have every unit kind of separate because it's all together now. Where exactly,
Is
Should
it a
those be
possibility that-
located?
That we could go up between Highlands Union Bank and that little alleyway?
It's
Like
to the side back
left
porch.
side here, down that small alleyway that goes down on that side right there. For the HVAC systems, because right now there's one, this
It's
is,
actually
it's
off of,
behind this.
it's off of that side, it's all grown up,
It's
so.
back side of this. It's on one heat system right now. One person controls the whole heat out of that whole place. And what we would like to do is every single unit that we build there have its own breaker box, its own heat pump system, and everything's separated, the water and everything, so that the people that's using that, that's what their demand is, that's what they're paying for. But what I can see doing that is running it down that alleyway to get it out of the, because you really can't see between that.
Is that a-
You can put the units down behind.
Is that the alley that goes down to White Top Yoga?
No, it's on opposite
No,
side.
it's on the other
Is
side,
that a-
it's a fence, it's all grown up.
Is that a
It's all
public,
kinds of vines.
public right of way, or is that a,
Uh,
I mean, is there an easement, private easement through there, or?
I think down below it is, because I think Mr. Stanley told us that it was a right of way from,
It's,
keep on going. It's a right of way from the end of that, the back of the building, along that fenceway, all the way to Plum Alley. It's like beside of the house that's for sale, and then like the yoga place.
Well, if it's part of those, streets and alleys and those kind of things, we wouldn't have the authority to allow you to put anything.
Oh,
It
that
wouldn't
wouldn't
be
be in there. It's like, you can't really see it. It's
I
off.
don't think
Well,
that there's an easement through there.
They've gotta
It's-
go
It's
somewhere.
super narrow.
Yeah.
Is it part of your property?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, if it's your
Yes.
property and nobody else has a right of way through there to use it, then you can do whatever you want.
Okay. I wouldn't think they would have a right of way because it's just off of that side.
It's straight in behind this. There's an offset off of this. And there's a fence right here that you can tell that runs between Highlands Union Bank. That fence goes all the way down towards the back of their property. And there's a little offset that you see right here. And once you get beyond that little offset, which is just like a small room, then you have a very narrow little strip of property between that and fence.
4 or 5
That they
feet.
can get in there and
So
they
you
can
know what
all
we're
run
talking
there.
about. It's all grown up.
Do you have a survey of your lot?
No.
Do you have a
Not yet, we
description?
don't. Excuse
Do
me?
you have a description in your deed?
We've not
We
made
haven't
it that
got
far
that.
with it yet.
Gotcha. Well, as
We're
long as-
still in the process of purchasing
I
the
got you.
property.
Right.
The
Maybe.
banker's here.
The banker's here.
Yeah.
Well, as long as it's your property, there's no, you're not interfering with somebody else's right of way, then you can put wherever you want.
Okay,
And
but it has to be covered,
screened.
right? A screen, like
Yeah, if you-
wooden,
Whether it's fencing or
Landscape.
landscaping,
Yeah.
things of this nature. Preferably they're out of view, but just screen them.
Okay.
And, tell us what type of screen,
Right.
you're gonna be using.
Right.
Okay.
Is all. But, and I'm assuming that's the similar issue relative to your trash cans.
yes.
Okay. Again, those prefer to be out of view, and then just screened, whether that's with fencing or landscaping, something of that nature.
So if that's somewhere next to the road fenced in, that would be okay. Like, the only reason we're saying that, because right now it's just kind of like trash everywhere. And just a few trash
a can
cans,
here,
so
a
we just
can
kind of
there.
wanted, one
So
central
throw that on the
location.
porch.
and-
It's just,
I mean, we'd need to see your plan for how you're gonna screen it and that kind of
Okay.
thing.
Yeah.
but-
yeah. Like I said, we want to make it look nice,
Right.
very nice. That's our goal, and you get in and make it work for us.
Right. Covered porch will be added to the front entrance on each side.
That goes back to what I was talking about. I know Mr. Bundy said that it, show me where it goes across there. It does, or it did have a porch, he
Right between
said.
the,
But he said it was only like a half
right
of one.
across here, runs, there's like a piece of wood that runs partial, maybe from here to the other side of the building, leaves this much off of it. and that there's a beam in there that it looks like a porch has been there once before, like a deck that steps out from somewhere. Now, I don't know,
He said a porch. that
there's
had-
no door that would go to it, it'd just be windows, but there's been something there, whether or not it's been a porch or it has had a roof that comes off of it to protect this side, but there's a wood beam that runs in between the brick here. And that's just something that we just noticed. We're looking for pictures to see and try to put it back as close to original as we possibly can. It's just odd that that piece of wood that's in there, that it didn't have anything that was attached to that.
But we'd rather not.
Yeah, we'd rather not have it to begin with, so, like I said, there wouldn't be a door there. There's no door.
Well, Mr. Bundy said that it didn't go all the way across the front.
I don't know what it would have.
I don't know, I can't see a porch
So, I mean, but
going
this is what-
halfway.
yeah.
We would
This-
rather have it like that.
Rather have a what? Like
The pediments.
Like here. Like the photo.
Like it, that's. That's.
It's similar
Isn't
to
that
what
what
it
you have
has
now?
now.
That's-
It's similar to what we have now.
Oh, you just put post instead of the.
Instead of angling back to the house.
Oh.
Or the brackets.
The brackets.
So
Right.
instead of having brackets, you want post straight down.
Yes. And then the same thing on the other entrance.
It's actually, these stagger have, when you get close to this, these things right here, where it's angled back 45 back into the wall this way and holding that weight of that wood, it is shifted and it's pulled away into the foundation over here, and it's just kind of, and we thought structurally, if you posted it up, it would serve more of a brace for it to keep it from going. If you go look at it, I mean, you can tell that it has shifted from being 45 off the side of the building.
Yeah, that's the left side.
That's how they all are.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the wood's just decayed and it's let it
And
move a little
picture of the
bit.
back. Do you have a picture of the addition in the back?
Well, I think, one thing you're gonna run into if you submit this to the Department of Historic Resources or to the Department of the Interior for federal and state tax credits, they're not gonna let you change like features, even minor changes like a support, changing that to a post. I mean, that's a, you know, the view is that these buildings are to be reserved the way they were. And, I mean, if you had some kind of evidence that there was originally a post there and this was some kind of later repair, then you could go back to the original. But having gone through that process, I can tell you that there are rules about those kinds of things, that you can't just be changing features of the building.
Mhm.
That, for example, if you would have to, if you're going to go back with the porch all the way across, you'd have to either have photographic evidence or through that, you know, somebody looking at that ghost mark of the wood or whatever, come back and say what was there, and then you could go back to that once you establish it's the original. Or, you know, if this is the original way these were done, you can, you know, repair them obviously and keep them in place, but it's not going to allow you to just change a support from the way it was originally to some new support. I mean, you can do it, but you won't get any tax credit for doing it.
Right.
But you take a back porch area like that, and the porch is built on it, you can go back with basically the same thing, as long as it looks original, because.
See, and I'm not even, that doesn't look original to me. I don't know, but
No,
I
it's been, no, it's
Yeah.
been, but it's.
So,
You can find-
Actually, this whole back- This whole
Yeah.
back half, I think is.
One thing on the DHR seminar last year is that if you had a photograph that was taken from some distance, and you could see that it had a porch and would post on it, then okay, you could go back with post. But if the photograph wasn't clear enough that you could tell how the post was made, then you're supposed to go back with a very plain post. In other words, you're not allowed to add ornamentation on what you think it might have been. So if you have pickets like that, for example, they would have to be like just 2x2 pickets that couldn't be turned. Is that what you said? You were doing something?
No, I was going, yeah.
And the craftsman brackets that are on
Let's
right
get to
now
know
are
you.
called craftsman elbows.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The things holding the porch up actually are called craftsman brackets or craftsman elbows.
Right.
And the way that the porch looks like it's done, they're definitely a support piece, obviously, but that was indicative of that time period. I mean, when the house was built, it definitely brackets were everything back then.
Mm-hmm.
That tight.
So you
Normally
think
they
the
had
same
them on
thing
the
was
roof, too.
probably there also?
Huh?
You think the same thing was there?
Oh, yeah, no, most definitely. I mean, that's right in the craftsman time. I mean, you got forever windows and hill
Everyone's
roof.
got it.
It's about as close to American porch, very tight, you know, set up. So you got craftsman brackets, you're right in there.
Mm-hmm.
Which means I have to repair and go back, you know, with those. The guttering. What do you all do? Replacing, is that OG that's there, or?
It looks like OG.
By the time
That
that
is-
it's around guttering.
That's
It is the entire structure.
the whole thing.
Well, I mean, it should be half round. Can't replace NOG for a craftsman.
So like in the future, just like if we needed to replace something, I mean, I'm just curious if you go back to that other picture, like the door that totally doesn't match
Yeah.
on the back part, how did that get approved? You can just like change it whenever you
I
want?
think a lot of, I mean, I don't know how long this board's been in existence, but
I don't think that came from the board, I think it was.
That would've never
done umpteen years ago, before the board was in existence.
Yeah.
Probably before the historic, it's
Yeah,
actually enacted.
Yeah, it's a great place, I've got a great place there, so.
and I think this, I mean, you know, as the years have gone by, I think this board's gotten more blunt about, you know, watching things like that too. So, I mean, people do go out and do things that we don't know about. But I imagine that was done before.
Does it look like it had any recent repairs?
Now, interior wise, when we go to remodel, that's totally on us. I mean, that's,
We
you're
can
just
do
dealing with
whatever.
outside.
They don't look like purple with red trim if you want to.
Oh, that's already there. You want us to let the windows, the
That's
drapes blow out the
asbestos
window?
right there, and if you were to care for, there's a market for that, secondary market.
Now is the OG,
It's hard to find.
I mean, they can replace what's that?
It's already there.
Yeah.
And another thing is like parking right there at the side, where they park now, I don't know if you have a picture or not. We
Right
have
on
to
the
have,
alley.
we have to have shrubs to hide that, is that correct?
How many parking spaces do you have?
6, 7. Oh, parking spaces? Well, it should be at least one for every one of them, but, if you count what's in front, and then how many can park to the side.
Is it one and a
Would that
half?
be an issue with the town?
That could
On the
be.
side of the street,
There's
her apartment, is there a,
That would be a good question for our town attorney.
because there's not gonna be 7 places.
Not on the side of it, it
There's
wouldn't be.
absolute no way you can get that in there.
I mean, I think there is a requirement for parking for number of units and that kind of thing. I think there are some provisions by which you can get waivers for that, so.
You'd have to find out the minimum amount that you'd have to have.
I'm
I
not
know in
mistaken,
Abingdon, they say
I know
you need
they-
2
you had to
parking
have
places
2.
per apartment.
it's 1.5
But
here.
there is, we purchased the old Matt Cody building, and, you know, there's parking there which belongs to the town. And they don't ever say anything, but there's businesses there, but we just so happen to have it on one side and back up the other side. I just didn't want to run into an issue with the town, say, well, we have 7 units here, and you only have parking for 3. And
Go ahead.
there's where we're gonna be, you know.
And that there's the parking.
Jason's you surely have that.
Yeah, I can find that information, I just have to.
I just don't want to run into something that's going to become an issue.
Well, in answering your question, on corner lots, parking areas should be edged with landscape screening along both primary and secondary roads. So you're talking about trying to.
Well, I'm talking
landscape-
about right there where that car is parked.
Yeah.
Do I have to get hedges tall enough to hide the top of the car, or just as long as I put hedges across through there, or?
I think the only thing I'm aware of, and you all correct me if I'm wrong, is this, and Rick, you know about this, the town did a study with regard to Plum Alley a number of years ago that encourages screening along Plum Alley. And so we encourage people to do that, but I don't know of any requirement that
Well,
we.
under 8C2, commercially used parking lots, which that's going to be a commercial building, should be screened from public view with hedges, shrubs, trees, or fences at their edges, and employ appropriately planted medians and dividers within their boundaries. So, short answer to your question, yes.
And that would just only be facing Valley, just on this side, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It doesn't give you height though on that. That's
But no
that's the
one-
nice thing, that you don't have to have a full mature bush to do.
Right.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
I do know that on the opposite end of that alley, there is White Top Yoga, and they have a lot of people coming there from, say, after 4:30. And the people who come there tend to take whatever parking spaces they can find, and that has been an issue with their propaganda.
The last item I have is trees trimmed and removed. And what the guidelines say are trees and shrubbery should be pruned so that buildings on historic properties are not concealed, obscured, or damaged.
So we can do pretty much whatever we want to on our property, but like the,
It's massive.
It is,
just-
yes.
it needs to be approved.
Yeah, it needs
massive.
to be.
But like the ones that, are they, it's like 2 trees, I'm not sure if it's on this side of the sidewalk, or that's the town's, correct?
Correct.
Unless it
Okay.
runs into a utility line, which utility lines are running through there. So, you know, there's an issue there with the utility.
If you
line.
close on your purchase, your parameters should be marked with iron pins, something of that nature. Locate those iron pins and then identify what improvements, trees, what have you, are yours and what are the town's, and then pinpoint what issues you may have with those. The town has been vigilant in trying to go through and pinpoint trees that are diseased, damaged, anything of this nature, and then take them down. As far as what is on your all's property, you are free to trim and prune as you see fit.
And are we able to do, like, does it have to be evergreens, or can we just do certain type trees, or do you all have to approve it even though it's on our property? And same as the screening and the hedges, the side of the parking?
We just need to see a plan for what you've got in mind.
A landscape.
A landscape plan. You know, saying, hey, I've got boxwoods, you know, right in front of the cars here.
Right.
You know, I've got a dogwood out front, whatever.
Can it just be pencil, or do I need to get someone to, like, draw that out again, or what do you?
I don't,
Go ahead, Mike.
I don't think we can require them to hire a professional.
If you got them with specificity, you know, that we can ascertain.
Well, pretty
you know,
much all what we are thinking, correct me if I'm wrong, is we're gonna do evergreens. just the boxwoods and things like that's what we're thinking about, so.
Let me try to go back. In essence, and you all correct me if I'm wrong, really the only thing is the paint then that is actionable tonight. All the other that you all have, you know, the shutters, the windows, the roof, exterior doors, everything else, you want to go back and take a look at, and then come back and then say, hey, here's what we're going to use, here's what we can do, things of this nature.
Because pretty much right now, you're saying unless Mr. Bundy comes up with a picture, shutters are pretty much out, unless we find the hardware, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I guess that's probably true. Is that what you're thinking? Just
Be
the
a whole lot
paint?
cheaper on us, not even consider shutters. If you're gonna sink $800 in a window, say forget the shutters.
Well, we can get,
It's just not the windows, that's also, you know, the stove and all that.
So,
and in the meantime, we can check on all that stuff.
okay. So really, all you're asking tonight then is that the committee approve, subject to you providing staff, the sample of the paint, repainting the house white.
And I have one other question.
Yes, ma'am.
As far as, I guess the contractors that work on it, someone said that we had to have those approved. Is that true? I mean, we can get whoever we want to work on it, right? Okay.
As long as they have a business license.
A
We
business
don't-
Gotta
license?
have a business.
We don't worry about that.
I worry about that.
We do. That's supposed to work for the town, do worry about it.
So we have to have a business license for the town?
And that's $1,200 to come in and apply for it, or is that?
I don't even have a clue
I
how
don't
much it
think-
would be, but they'd see the clerks upstairs and they'll be
I
able
think
to.
it's what it
Yeah,
is.
it's mine.
Okay. And they also told us to check about like dumpsters and things like that. Who, is that you all that approve it or
it'd be
somebody
the
else?
town.
Or you do that?
The town, we
You
do
do
The
that?
town.
Okay. We need to get that.
Yeah.
I would have to
Let's-
listen.
And you need to buy that little house behind that so you'll have more parking.
Yeah,
Save
I
you some
thought
money.
about that. Can you get,
Don't drain the well.
you have to talk to the bank. Guess we better not go there this
Yep.
evening.
With that said, I'll entertain a motion to approve repainting the house in the white with a sample to be provided to staff prior to commencement.
So moved.
I second that.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mr. Weaver?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Geisler?
Aye.
Mr. Neese?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank
Y'all
you.
stay on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank you so much.
Thank
Just come
you.
by and see me.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you. And the lady that you talked to is Cecile, oh, I'm sorry.
Well, they're not gonna be able to do it. I thought you had
Not
a
out.
state trooper thing on.
No, I'm Chief Dempsey over in Russell County.
Hey, Sue.
I just got off work.
That's Cecile Rosenbaum who was speaking to you. She's our town, assistant town manager, so I'm sure she might be ready.
Yeah, she stepped up after.
Or something, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Next item we have on the agenda is Ms. Marsh, Representative Mike Rush. Yes, ma'am. Thank you,
Thank you. We have some, but thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Mr. Rush, first item is replace the shingles on the roof.
Yes, sir.
Going back with architectural shingles.
Yes, sir.
Pretty much similar color.
Yeah,
I think
What
what-
color is red?
That's right.
This, several years ago, this was a restaurant.
Yes, it was.
And I recall.
The cobblestone ordinary, the finest sandwiches in Abingdon.
Okay.
They were.
And let me just tell you, real quickly, it takes a second to tell you, but, you know, what I thought was this is the worst eyesore in Abingdon, and so I was gonna try. And then I got word that she wanted to move back here, that her daughter was going to have a picture in South Carolina. So what I did was I put some grant money together to replace a roof, to do a bathroom redesign with a handicap roll-in shower and so forth, and replace the windows and other things. But what you can see from the outside is the roof and the windows. I brought together about $33,000 of grant money and low interest loan money and so I think we can wind up getting this house back in order for her. She's on fixed income, about $50 a month. So
I should have talked to you.
yeah, I've done that little piece of work. Thanks. Mr. Weaver knows I did about $60 million of construction from 2007 to 2013, and so I know how that happens. The other thing that's salient here is I'm not getting anything for this. I'm doing this. I'm going to try to do it with Habitat for Humanity as a contractor. They're my contractor. I don't want to be the contractor. I want Habitat because they have volunteers. They also have the credentials that they need to do this job, so that they can pull all the permits and do whatever it needs to be done. The objective of this project is to get this property back in inventory and do it in a way that I don't know if you've noticed, but the historic district juts out and grabs that piece of property and it continues on the other side of the alley. It's interesting, and I don't know. I talked to Al Bradley, who was, and he assured me that it wasn't in the historic district. And of course, when I checked, it was. And I thought, I think that what happened was maybe Vicky Marsh at some point probably wanted it to be historic and troubled somebody to death to get that done. So
You had gerrymandering going on.
yeah, it's hard to tell. But anyway, the shade of shingle that I'm looking for is cited on page 14 of the regulations, and I expect that to be an acceptable upgrade.
Okay. The windows?
The windows, you have a spec sheet on these windows. They're aluminum clad on. They have a profile. We searched high-low to find a window that had the same. This is simulated true divided light, and it has the same size profile, depth profile as the existing windows. Now, in actuality, my intention is to take the best two windows from that house and put them on the front of the house, so that actually from the front of the house, the two windows you view in that picture will actually be original windows. And then, as a matter of fact, we'll get the guys at Eastside to try to fix those windows.
Having the millwork, TDLs, they need to be.
So, down past my old apartments
On Lowry.
on Lowry. And so what I'll actually, there's 8 windows to be replaced, and I'll actually replace 6 of those windows with vinyl clad. The literature on page 16 says there should be original size, shape, design, same number of lights, and hopefully the same appearance profile. The new windows, these proposed windows, would indeed have raised muttons and would have simulated true divided light with muttons permanently fixed to the outside. So, and then referring then back to page 11 of the guidelines, they would be indeed. This calls for vinyl clad or aluminum clad. These are aluminum clad. As the page 11 cites them as acceptable, so long as the dimensions are compatible with historic window openings, and they are. So on page 11 and page 16, I believe that would be compliant with that.
The windows you're talking about replacing, that's a side of, those two used to be the entrance right there.
Now, the two windows, if you have,
Stay, go back up, Jason.
yeah.
No, other direction, sorry, right there.
These windows here face the road. This one and the one that's right here, they face the road.
Yes, sir.
I want to try to get these windows that are under this porch that are in better shape and try to put them here. And then the other windows, and the windows on the far side.
Are we gonna try to repair these windows on the side?
I'm gonna repair two windows that face the road further.
Well, of course, our guidelines don't allow windows to be replaced, they have to be repaired. So the original windows have to be retained, they can't be replaced with new windows.
Okay. I think that your literature,
It's all, it's number 45 on page 16.
Correct.
Windows that are original should be preserved in their original location, size, and design with their original materials and number of panes. In part C, windows should be repaired rather than replaced.
yeah, and the only reason for replacing any of the windows is that they, I think you got a couple close-ups of these windows, and I don't think they can be salvaged. I don't think
Those can clearly be salvaged.
Well, I don't have, then my new plan is I'm gonna repair all those windows.
Okay.
There, you just heard the guy a minute ago, that just saved me $800 a window, and it's about $250 a window to get this done.
So you get these repaired? That's good. That's
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
And you
So-
keep the true divided lights. You can't-
Yeah, well, so if I repair all these windows, then I'll, of course, have exactly what you want, and then I'll, on the inside, I'll put a panel, a storm panel on the inside.
Perfect.
Well, you can do that. You can actually put it on the outside as well, a full view
Yeah,
storm window.
it'll look better on the inside. The windows right now, none of the windows are operational, and they have ivy growing through them and things like that, so.
I mean, it's wonderful that you're doing, I mean, you may came in late, but, you know, if we allow people to take these features out of the historic buildings, then pretty soon we're gonna have a bunch of shells of historic buildings with new windows
I
and
understand
doors.
this, I've done
Yeah,
historic.
Right. I mean, it's fantastic you're doing this, and that building certainly needs.
I'm real
Needs a
happy
lot of
with
help.
that too.
You didn't mention anything, no guttering, anything of that nature, or?
There's a piece of guttering on the back. You got that, Jason?
I don't think I have a picture.
You have a picture of the back of, this is, see this curve? This is half circle gutter.
Half
And,
circle.
Eric Smith, a Damascus guy,
Mhm.
does that guttering and has priced that to us.
Okay, so
So-
you want that added?
You know what, I was looking for a little bit of advice. I don't have evidence on the side that there was a gutter. And I gave you a close-up of that.
Mhm.
It was showing why I couldn't tell. Now, it looks like from the paint that I'm looking at, it looks like maybe they had that strapped up under the shingles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
See, you can do that. That's a,
It does kind of pop up there, though.
So, but what you don't see is model holes in the ends of those flies, as though somebody had put, nailed up a monitor gutter.
Mhm.
So, I would like approval to put up the
Half frame.
appropriate gutter.
And that one might not have ever had it.
Well, then it might not have, and
A lot of them like that,
we'll get
don't
up
they?
close and personal with that. It took 4.5 weeks for them to get the house cleaned out. And that's with them going through these bags of stuff going, well, now this looks pretty good. Maybe if we send this to the dry cleaners, they got 44 bags of that stuff. But they're out of town now, and I'm plugging away at getting there. their project done. Yes, sir.
There's not there, there's a picture of Vicky Marsh opening up the cobblestone ordinary.
Mhm.
It shows that it shows just about right there.
Mhm.
They're standing just about right
Yeah.
there. It might show you whether there's.
That'd be great. Who's got that?
I don't know, I think Vicky posted, I've got somewhere in my
Okay,
photos.
and my evidence is on the back there, and where there is a piece of that guttering hanging, so it's not inappropriate to that house. And it's just a question of spending that extra money.
That was shown on the house now, it was an addition to the house. wasn't it?
Yes.
So it's-
And a crappy addition, I might
Yeah.
add.
Well, I know, I mean, are you gonna repair that?
Yeah, will you give me that look again on the back thing? See, this siding, there's several things wrong. This has to be lifted up. This is probably a 4.5-inch decline here, in 4.5 feet. So I got something like that fall. And that's just because they didn't do this very well. And so when they get under that, out of sight, and lift that up, and then, this siding is not great siding, but I can find it, and I can straighten out some of that stuff, so. But, I hope not to do too much. There's, the roof, of course, the roof repairs is the important thing here, and there's a hole, and then you can throw a basketball through it, and, rotten wood and everything like that. But we'll only repair that, and we'll paint that. Did I give you a paint sample?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, remember that we were proposing to put simulated true divided lights windows that were brick red in color. And so Sherwin-Williams, of course, you mentioned it before, has a series of colors. And, what I'm interested in is getting your take on that. That color right now, you see there's 3 colors on it. There's a sort of a faded sage green, the almost faded Pepto-Bismol tank, and then the white. We would go back to match the roof and the windows, which was one of the plans. But the other plan is to go back with the plastic white buff, which is.
Is that your preference?
Well, if that's what.
We can make recommendations.
That's what I feel like.
Relative to the paint.
Yeah.
That's, I won't say it's up to the homeowner. So you tell us what your preference is.
Well, my preference is right at this moment is plastic buff.
Rather than the red?
Rather than the red, right? I think
it would look better.
I think it would look better. Yeah, I think that was a mistake. Or all 3 of those were mistakes. But the least offensive of those mistakes is the white.
Yeah.
So,
What is that color number, please, sir?
Okay.
Can't say it either way. 0050.
Now, if when that part of the repair is done, and Vicky Marsh doesn't like my choice in colors, which she's an artist, and that, if you know Vicky,
That explains what we've got.
That could happen. So I would come back before this board and see if I could get a revision. But I want to leave here today with a plan.
Okay, so we've got replace the shingles with architectural shingles. The color is the Riviera red. Repair the windows. The guttering and we can approve it and leave it up to you, but replace the gutter with half-round guttering.
I have that in my bid. So,
Okay. And then the paint will be for the exterior and the windows, be the classic light buff, which is the Sherwin-Williams 0050.
Yeah, from their historical collection. So that guy assured me that was going to be what you guys would like to see.
And what color will the guttering be?
The same color as that edition. I think that's right. I think we just made the same dimension. Oh, okay, yeah.
approximately describe?
You know what? Michael's bringing up a point to me. I'd like to see if I could get approval to paint the gutter along the side of the house. Remember, we were approving the brick red, actually it's called Riviera
Red shingles.
For the shingles. Then maybe the paint for windows and gutter should be red also. You can see, can you give me one of the windows up there? See, that was at one time a burgundy kind of a color, or perhaps a brick red. And so can we agree on a color there that looks?
Tell us what you.
Yeah.
I think we should see the roof sample.
Not Chinese.
No, I would,
I'm thinking. Okay.
either that or you can take one of the shingles of Sherwin-Williams and they can scan it. and get it.
But, well, and we may do that, but let's get an approval right now for Rembrandt Ruby Sherwin-Williams color 0033.
I want a job named Kelvin.
Rembrandt Ruby.
Ruby. And that's.
I'm gonna refrain.
That's a little bit like, it's like a brick red. I think that's the closest to a brick red that I see in there. And where's the?
Right here, yeah, let's look at that.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. But those look pretty. Did you already have this
See, I
picture?
was to
Yeah.
be darker than that,
A
Mike.
little darker. And that, it needs to be, what, that color red
It's
right
almost
there?
close.
Yeah, and see, to me, that's the closest, but this
This
is
has got a little more orange in it.
yeah, this is a little orangey to me, but maybe a better match. I hate to bring out the oranges in because it's Riviera red, not Riviera orange.
Let me have that roof sample.
You want the roof sample?
You gotta think here, Sherwin-Williams colors now.
Okay. But that would allow me to paint gutters, window trim.
But one consideration I think Mr. Humphrey was alluding to, if you paint a half round, chipping.
It won't stay on
It
there.
doesn't stay on.
No, it won't stay on there?
It doesn't stay on
It
there.
won't come prime?
It'll
Is
be-
that galvanized?
It'll be flaking every couple of
Yeah,
years.
you can actually have your gutter guy
They
buy
prime
the
it.
right color
Yeah.
aluminum. They've done already.
Yeah.
and he'll-
I bet Eric
Yeah,
can do it.
Yeah, he can.
He can do
Sure
it.
he can. We'll.
Let him get the
And
right
then bring
color.
bring a sample of that back.
Yeah, we don't, tonight, I just want approval to put guttering up there, and so if I can get guttering with the color, then I just come back here before we put the guttering up and get, you guys are first.
So the paint is for the windows then?
Oh, he's got a
Yeah,
letter.
so
He's gonna match it.
it's analyzing it right now,
There's a Rojo maroon.
but not in the historic.
Doesn't matter, that's just something they came up with.
Okay.
That's marketing. That's mahogany, they're darker than these.
Get copper, Mike, it'll blend good.
Get what?
Copper.
Yeah. Well, are you helping or hurting? It's a little editorial over there.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about, and not being true again, but if you're gonna put half round guttering down this side,
Mhm.
I would say never had it, because I think if you do it, you won't soffit, and you need fascia board and soffit on
Mhm.
there. I think if not, it's gonna catch all the water's gonna catch, it's gonna rot your board.
Well, that's what I think, and I think that the evidence from my club that I brought for their review shows that it's not there, or that it wasn't there. But that I had a piece of it on the back, I didn't want to just not address it, you know?
Yeah.
That's probably why they put it on his knee, probably why they put it on there.
I mean, it's totally up to you what you want, but were you just thinking of painting the windows because you were trying to match the gutter? Because, I mean.
No, I was thinking, when the windows come back from up, there's gonna be whatever vestige of color is still on them, and some epoxy and some other stuff. And so they're gonna need to be painted both the sill and the mulligan.
Yeah.
And so, really, yeah, we
I
gotta
mean, it's
come
totally
up.
up to you, but I was just, the white would look good against the stone, but.
I
was
would
thinking if
love
you were-
that, I would love that, but you know, if I don't plan on the red, get the red approved,
We can approve both, can't we?
yeah, but I think you can because they're both within the context of paint. You know, that's the one thing that you guys can be most forgiving on, so. But my intention to, I can't do all of these things, all of the windows at once. I mean, I just can't tear them all out, just have the, place open. And Vicky's getting evicted on March the 1st, so I have to, it's quite a juggling act, you see, is to get those things done by then. It can't happen. In reality, it's gonna have to be in the house for some of that. But we get the front part of it, these front most important windows along the side done.
Okay, so in the interest of trying to keep everything moving, we've got the shingles in the Riviera red. We've got the paint as the classic light buff Sherwin-Williams. The guttering, you do want approved.
Not approved for guttering.
Okay, just half round guttering. And then the windows, are we still looking at the Sherwin-Williams 0033? Is that still the color we're going with, or?
I'd like, if you can approve two colors, the 0033 and the buff.
Correct.
Okay.
And then, Vicky's not had an opportunity to weigh in on
Yeah, no, I mean, I
color, and
don't,
I think that
I don't see a
I
concern.
thought we were gonna match it more with the Riviera
Yeah,
red.
I think the 0033 is gonna be too light.
I think it probably will be too, but if we just opt for the buff, it'll be immaterial.
Okay.
Can I have these two back, or you need it?
I don't know, I've got a copy of it.
Make sure on the guttering, we talked about, he's gonna get the color guttering already, we'll have to have some.
Correct. Okay, in summary, replace the shingles on the roof with architectural shingles. The color is the Riviera red. The paint for the exterior is going to be the classic light buff Sherwin-Williams 0050, and you may be able to use that on the windows. The guttering is half round guttering that may be painted. If you go with a stamped metal that's already baked on, has the baked on, we need to see.
I'll come back.
Come back to us with that. And then also trim paint could be the Sherwin-Williams 0033, which is the Rembrandt. Is that,
That's perfect.
so moved. If that's okay. I got a motion, I need a second.
Oh, no.
Yes, this is, I thought, of all nights for me to get in behind.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Weaver?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Geisler? Aye. Mr. Neese?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Mike,
you,
if you
Mr.
look
Rush.
out back, maybe beside the house, it might have gravel all the way around it.
It could be
A lot of
like
those old
French
houses
drain
like that
on it.
have gravel where they never really did gutters, they just let it all dump in
And-
a big French drain.
And-
I have, somewhere in these, I have 8,000 pictures, somewhere in there I've got Vicky's Day, the opening day of Cobblestone.
Yeah.
2 seconds.
And it shows what it has got.
If you find that, if you happen to find that, let me know. Just send it to Jim Rush at HF.
Next item on the agenda is the application for
Thank you, Mike.
tax, thank you, tax abatement, the Virginia House Company owns the Penn Stewart office.
I'm the designated representative.
Mr. Kinsler is the designated. Please note, he has recused himself from the committee.
So we received a certificate, a waiver, I guess, with regard to just replacing the asphalt shingle roof on the building with an asphalt shingle roof. And so that's been done, and we've attached the cost for that, which was $16,704. We're asking for approval to be forwarded for that tax credit.
The receipt, staff has got a copy of the check.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a copy of the original bill from there?
I don't think Missy sent me the original bill. They paid.
Yeah. If you could get just a copy of the bill with the check, that substantiates it having been paid for. I'll entertain a motion that this matter now be presented to Mr. Kelly for his signature, and then, assuming he approves it, on to the treasurer.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Weaver? Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Neese? Aye. Mr. Johnson?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is, actually, there's one other item for this that I wanted to touch upon. And it has to do with waivers. The committee previously, I don't want to say frowned upon, we were going through a transition relative to the waivers as far as staff granting. And all of this stemmed from, originally I think it was the Barter tent not coming before the committee, having been granted a waiver from Mr. Garrett at that time. You all correct me if I'm wrong, matters that, I know the guidelines are specific as to what is waivable and what is not. Minor corrections, going back, paint, same color, things of this nature. I just wanted to, the reason for addressing it, make sure that the committee is comfortable with the granting of the waivers. Do all matters need to come before us, or what are you all comfortable with as far as being waivable?
What's our guidelines say though? Or is it part of the county code?
No, it's actually part of the guidelines, the introduction.
It is in code too, I believe.
Yeah. Routine maintenance and repair of buildings and other minor actions. The zoning administrator can determine certain minor actions, and then those are subject to a waiver, and will by written waiver exempt minor actions for review by the HPRB. That's on page 1. Yeah, page 1 of the guidelines. I just wanted to see what you all were comfortable in, to make sure that any matter that should come before the board does.
We've had this discussion for years.
Yeah.
It really is something, maintenance and ongoing maintenance is something that's important to bring before the board and get approved. And most of the time, our argument has always been to the side of, the town staff can take care of that without us having to officiate. As long as it's not something that's more detailed. The routine maintenance has been something that we just let it get waived, as long as it's going back like.
Well, and I don't have a concern with that or staff's ability, anything of this nature. This is by no means condemning any actions or anything of this nature. I just don't want any gray areas as best we can. This was just a matter that came up previously. And like you said, the committee's wrestled with it for a while. If it's minor actions, then those are, going back with the same paint. Here, this was going back with the same roof, things of that nature. As long as the committee's comfortable with it, then, I just want staff to have guidelines so that they know. And then the committee also knows area of responsibility so that there's no confusion.
I say one thing probably would be a good idea, like in your case, did you submit like a sample of what the roof was gonna be? What shingle you're going back with?
I didn't handle that. I don't know if they did or not. Did they?
Yeah, they did. I got it, yeah.
So you got a sample of what they were going back with? So I think that, to me, is kind of appropriate there. It's like they're getting samples of what is going back so that they can match it after it's done. I mean, I think that
Correct.
seems.
Again, I don't have a concern, it's just making sure that everybody's reading from the same page.
If they're gonna replace anything, or if they're gonna change the color, then they have to come before us.
Yeah, I think truly if it's a repair of what's there, using same materials, same color, just basically repairing what's there,
Right.
then we don't need
Repairing
to.
kind.
But if it's gonna be changing anything,
Jason, does that sound reasonable?
That sounds good to me. I mean, I don't see the reason to come fascia board or a rotten piece of fascia board. They don't need to come before the board for that, as long as they're replacing it, painting it back the same color.
Correct. And I agree, it was just something that we've looked at previously, and whenever I saw this one. Okay.
Anything that I would not be comfortable with would definitely come before the board.
Okay.
And I'm okay with it too, as long as there's, that, says we can, other than our guidelines, and that's if we're in the code.
Yeah. The next item for discussion, it goes back to the standing seam roof that was raised by Mr. Humphreys at our January meeting. And I asked him to do a little research on it as to what the Department of Historical Resources actually defined as a standing seam. And I think you all received back in the packet a copy of the email saying that's just a quote unquote, that's a pretty broad question. The attached image is a page from the building construction illustrated and may be helpful. Our guidelines specify under the roof just standing seam metal sheet roofing. Now, I've searched for, when did metal roofing really come into prominence, so to speak, and that was, from what I've seen, is about the 1800s. The roofing at that time, was probably just flat panel. Since then, the standing seam has different variations, whether that's striations, different latches, and going back to the guidelines, I'm not sure if the guidelines couldn't be more specific than what they're alluding to, which is just standing seam. This is a discussion matter, so entertain comments from the board, and then we'll open it up to members here, interested parties.
Well, I'd like to see the guidelines restrict to flat panels only. I haven't done a great deal of research on this, but it's my opinion that back in when these standing seam roofs were popular, that's all that was available. Subsequent to that, metals got thinner, and in order to make them rigid, they have to do some kind of a groove in it or a striation in it to give it some rigidity, which in my opinion is not period appropriate.
Do you know when the striation started?
Have no idea.
That's what we're trying to figure out.
We tried to, and again, Staff has looked at this. You know, I've tried to research it as well as to when different variations actually came into existence and what is appropriate for the architectural timing of the building. If the building was, you know, 1850, 1870, appropriate roof at that time. And so that we can, you know, further define, refine the guidelines to reflect that. You drive through town and you have several flat panels. You have roofs that have variations in them. I think Fred and Gypsy Holt's house is one that has striations in the roof. My next door neighbor is not a flat panel roof. I don't know when that was revised, but I don't think that's been that long ago. You know, I know Mr. Goodman didn't do it. It was there whenever he bought the structure, but the predecessor put a new roof on it.
Parks.
The Parks.
Tom Bunn.
Tom Bundy.
Yeah, I remember when that house was on the
Bunton.
market.
He's from Greensboro. I live just together.
So was that
Okay.
before the parks or after the parks? After the parks? After.
I mean, I think you're looking around 2006 and 7.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
But-
Yeah, I remember.
They got to stop work for it.
They've done.
They got to stop work.
Yes, sir. I can, after y'all finish talking.
My concern or problem with the guidelines are not specific. Technology, whether it's in the windows, whether it's in roofing materials, whatever the situation is, has called up and actually invented different variations, improvements, whatever have you, just like Mike said, in cost savings. They're going with different, thinner material, you know, and coming up with different variations to strengthen it, still trying to maintain a standing seam look. Our guidelines don't reflect that. Our guidelines simply state standing seam. It's one thing looking back, it's one thing looking forward. So, you know, I'm open for suggestions as to what you all think. Open it up to the comments here. Mr. Humphrey?
Okay, and I just want to address, so I've done a little research too. We really haven't had any problem with the regulations that are written, except for back when Tom Bunton did the Parks House. And when Tom did the Parks House, they actually put a stop work order in. Garrett Jackson was here. He and his assistant went in and they put that in there. So, and they had to stop work on it. They came back and they appealed that. They came back and they were putting so much money in the house and the house was dilapidated and it was making the street look bad, and why couldn't they get a break on that? And I'm not sure it was the council, Jason probably could tell us, I don't know if it was the council or if it was this board, gave them a break on it. That's the only one that's been done. The striations is something that's new. And the thing about it is in order, if you have someone do a standing seam roof, then that's a standing seam roof. That's a flat panel. You have to start adding. So it's a flat panel roof with striations, a flat panel roof with whatever, you know. Have been down here where people came in and wanted to put tin roofs on, and there was the kind that you put on chicken coops. And that's kind of what the striations was like. It doesn't, you know, it has kind of, it clips over, it's got a hump in it, and so there's a hump in it. And so it's almost like a chicken coop. And what it is it's very modern. So to stick this in, and I agree, Mark Goodman, I'm hoping that next time he'll have to have a roof, we'll put in a standing seam roof. But to put one in there is really a kind of a smack in this board's face. It's basically saying, y'all don't know what you're doing, and you're letting a modern roof, which that's what the striations is, go in a historic district. The one that's right on top of Courthouse House in Byram has spent untold amounts of money to make sure that his roof is correct, just to have someone come across and put theirs up. There was only about a third of that roof on, when it was, people were made aware that it was an incorrect roof, and yet it was put on. And then the other thing is we've held other people to guidelines, such as beside him, Edison Jennings, that take Edison to court because he didn't use half-round gutter and he used OG gutter. And he changed it over and he put the half-round gutter on. I, myself, did 2 houses. We were not allowed. It was flat. They came out and checked it and to make sure that it was was standing seam flat. And that has been in every roof, as far as I know, that's been put on its metal roof that's now in the historic district. And to make sure that that was done. I think that opens up this board, if you let it pass, the one that's there, for multiple lawsuits, including myself, because I was made doing it. It cost about $16,000 extra to do that. And I think it opens us up for litigation. But the one I think about the most is Carl Mallory. Carl Mallory came and begged this board to let him have a standing seam, let him have this striated roof. And this board turned him down multiple times, as well as council turned him down to get a waiver to put a striated roof on there. So, I think that we're doing ourselves a disservice. I guess what I'm looking at is it has never been a problem per se before. And why it would come now, maybe the language isn't strong enough. I know to talk to the people, if they want to put a metal roof on there, you all talked about the standing seam and told them what to put it on there just now. In fact, the gentleman in question, that night, this board told him it had to be flat. It had to be flat. And I asked to have the tapes pulled because it was said, not the bumpy kind, the flat kind. And we don't have the tape for that meeting. And if people agree, you all can draw back and draw your own conclusions, but I think that you can remember, I think you possibly can remember whether that he was told flat or not. I think that was because it was one of those things that was very important. Now, either one or two things in this case has happened, and that's either one that he was wrong or one that we were wrong. Either way, it needs to be replaced. That roof is a modern roof, right down in the middle of the historic district, right in front of Byram's house, right across from people's houses that have followed the rules. And so that's it. Now, and you talk about standing seam roofs. I wish Joe left. But Joe Levine has a standing seam ranch house, which is really totally inappropriate. And to put the standing seam, because they were when they came out, it was asphalt shingles. Right. And so I think that you're going to look. I think Joe probably he's getting ready to come in front of this board, and not too far off. He has to take his metal roof off and put back what would have been appropriate, which would have been the standing seam. So I think that as you're looking at rules and regulations, I think that there's 2 things, and one of them is that something has to be decided about the house or the cottage, the old Judge Stewart cottage on Main Street, and then the other thing is if you think you need to stiffen or refine or be more specific on the type of metal roofing, because when I came, I had to bring a piece and show it, and so if we have to be more specific about it, then I think it's incumbent that we toughen those up. But I think there's 2 things that are going to be in front of this board, and one of them is what do you do with what's already happened? It needs to be fixed. It doesn't need to be that glaring. It can be right there in the middle. And the second thing is how do you go forward from there? So anyway, that's it. That's all I have to say.
I've got a question for you.
Yes.
Were you on this board prior to
Never
my
have been on
coming?
this-
You've
never
never
been
been
on-
on this board?
No. I've wanted to be on this board. I've just never been on this
Well,
board.
you should be. You're
Hopefully
good
in
at,
the future.
you're good at
Hopefully in the future.
this. The other question I had, and I may have to pass it along to the chairman here to go ahead and continue, and I think it just left my mind, but go right ahead.
When you said did you listen to the
I happened to be here that night.
No, you said something about that. Was that discussed in terms of when we approved standing seam? Was there discussion? Is that what you heard from them?
Yes, from the board, yeah.
No, but did you say you listened to the minutes?
No. I asked. No. I was here.
You asked to.
I was actually physically.
Okay.
It was one of those nights I came.
But then you said I didn't completely understand what
I'm
you
sorry.
said. Did you ask to hear
To hear the minutes, I said, yeah, let's, because it'll tell
And then
them.
what happened with that?
They didn't get recorded.
They didn't get recorded. Okay, that's what I didn't know.
Yeah, because I said, if you'll listen to the minutes, because you all, you specifically said, it's the standing seam, it has to be flat, nothing else, it can't be and so, they can't have lines in it, can't be, and
Carl, was that?
it was, I don't know who the guy, I don't know what the guy's name is, yellow, popular.
That's me. I was here with that.
And so, okay,
Yeah,
so-
no one said anything about flat panel versus striated.
Well, they said a standing seam roof, and they said not the ones with the pumps in it.
I don't recall that.
Well, I was right here, so if you're calling me a liar, I'm calling you a liar.
Well, I'm just saying I have a difference of opinion with you on your recollection.
Well, what you were talking about was, you were talking about whether or not, the roof on the back of it, you came in to do it, and you wanted the chimney taken off. At that time, you were going to put the roof on, correct?
The entire roof on the building, which was originally
Flat panels.
No, the roof that I was replacing on the main part of the building were deteriorated asphalt shingles. I could easily have come in and asked to have those shingles replaced with new shingles.
Right.
I didn't do that.
Right.
That would have cost me perhaps $2,000.
Flats probably.
Yeah, $2,000 total.
Oh, yeah.
For a 1,000 square foot building.
Right.
What you're talking about is the back of the building, which had an old 5B shed roof on it,
Well,
which was not original.
Well, no, it wasn't original, no, exactly. But it was a flat, when they said that, you asked about putting the panel, you said.
I have no recollection of there being any discussion.
Is the
of
roof that was installed?
And you did take the chimney down, correct? And that was what the whole reason you came down the chimney and said, well, I'll take the chimney down, then I'm gonna put the roof on.
The chimney on the shed roof in the back was a side issue.
Is the roof that was installed classified as a standing seam roof?
According to the information that we've got from the manufacturer.
And so it is a standing seam roof, and it stops right there, there's nothing else.
With striation.
See, with striations, and see, it's never been a problem before, ever been a problem before. Because we've never had, because it's always been a standing seam roof, it's understood it's flat. We go out and check it, and I'm not saying whose fault it is, I'm saying it needs to be corrected. And that's the one issue.
And what would you have put on again?
Excuse me?
What was your roof that you had put on again?
It's a standing seam roof. It's got the striated panels on it. There's no prohibition in the town's guidelines for that. If you go through the historic district, those roofs have been installed all over.
And where else have they been installed?
Oh, the house just across from the Patton House at Pecan and Valley, for example, clearly a striated panel, standing seam roof.
Fred and Gypsy holes.
There are striations on the Nature Conservancy's standing seam roof. Look closely with the right sun angle. You'll see all throughout the historic district.
Well, I'm in this district, I have.
There are
300.
many, yes, I know you do, and you do it, and you do have done a fine job.
Already done, so.
Well, but what I'm saying is they wouldn't let me do it. And it cost me about 16,000 extra, 40,000 on one extra. And so, and so what I'm looking at is, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying what was told here, what I heard. And then what I'm saying is either one of two things should happen. And he said, well, either one of two things that happen, but at the bottom, at the end of the day, there should be flat panels on there. Flat panel, standing seam roof. Standing seam roof is standing seam roof. It's not standing seam roof with any other additions, it's standing seam roof.
So, Mr.
Well, because
Humphries.
that's a modern roof.
Mr. Humphries, can I ask you a question,
Yes,
please, sir? When you approached whomever, who did you approach and talk to your roof and ask that if you could do the striations or not? And they told you no.
Oh, it was your planning commission, your planning director.
The HPBR.
Yeah, first it was Garrett Jackson, and the
So
next
Garrett
time.
Jackson told you no.
Well, and here,
Okay.
Here
and
told me no. Yeah, here
What
told
I
me no.
wonder is, why didn't this get changed then?
it didn't need to be. Everybody was doing that.
If you were asking, and it says standing seam metal sheet roofing, and it's wrong.
Garrett Jackson did it, then after Garrett Jackson did it, Matthew Johnson did it. Everything was flat panel, standing seam roof.
Well, if it wasn't supposed to be just, You know, if it's supposed to be flat, then it should be saying it's flat.
Well, but that's why, if it wasn't, then why would Goodman's gonna stop?
I wasn't on the board
Well,
then,
but I'm just
and I
saying,
don't
Goodman's was,
know.
and that would,
Goodman's to me looks like a 5V roof. It's got screws through the
well,
panel.
it is a straight roof too, and it's incorrect. And
Yeah, but it's got screws through the panels. It's not a standing seam roof.
I know, well, you're exactly right. No, it wasn't. And they put a,
I mean, that-
and the town of Abingdon put a stop work order against it.
Yeah, but that's, you're comparing apples and oranges there.
Standing seam roof.
You're gonna be able to stop discussing.
Okay, that's fine.
So, why don't, yeah.
I think we definitely need to amend our guidelines to read
I do too.
flat panel.
Well, and that's the whole point, and I agree. If there's any ambiguity in the guidelines, the ambiguities cannot be construed against the individuals who follow them. If anything, it ought to be against, so to speak, the drafter. The striations, you know, are not time appropriate, so to speak, due for reasons that Mike stated earlier. What we're left with is the roof that was installed is a standing seam roof, from information that staff has acquired. There is standing seam striation. This committee approved standing seam. Maybe we weren't clear, saying standing seam, flat panel.
If we look at our certificate, the certificate of purpose that we issued. was there
Yes, I
underneath
looked at
right
it,
there?
and it says standing seam,
That's just all it says, is standing seam.
as far as I know. Do you have a copy of that, Mr. Boswell?
Probably pull it up.
I thought I brought mine, but I don't think I did.
Well, this is why I raised the issue when I was new on the board, and I didn't press it because I was new on the board. But
When was that, yes, sir?
it's a couple of years ago, and I wanted
See, I tried to call Neil and talk with him on it. Neil Booth. And to see and never could get with him.
Who's your contractor put the roof on?
No, he's the
Supplier.
I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, I
Here's the
I-
certificate of purpose.
When was this done?
It was September 2017, September's meeting.
because I did not understand when I was new on the board that Goodman Jewelers did not do that roof. And when he came back for tax abatement, I said, why was this allowed? I didn't realize that the roof was not part of his tax.
And you have pictures of what it was before. 5 asphalt.
In the front shot.
And we don't have, I guess, the meeting just wasn't recorded.
No, I don't agree.
Correct.
That's why, because I need the minutes.
That's the reason why we've had IT coming in and recording that audio and video.
Mr. Boswell, we got a letter from Megan Melanot. Is that correct? From the DHR. You all have that, please. Anybody want to read this into the minutes?
All of them.
It's the one, it's the from Megan Melanot. Did you get yours?
You want to read that, or?
I do. I don't have the one to her, it says, "Hi, Kim." I guess that would be Miss Kingsley that she was writing to, am I correct?
Yes.
It says, "Hi Kim, this is from Megan Melinat, M-E-L-I-N-A-T, with DHR, Department of Historic Resources. Hi Kim, that's a pretty broad question. The attached image is a page from Building Construction Illustrated. That may be helpful. Alternately, this website has a more casual description of the topic. If I can answer specific questions, please let me know. Thanks, Megan," from the Virginia Department of Historic Resources, and their phone number is listed. So what Ms. Melinat said is that it's a broad question. So we, looked into this, and our staff has looked into this to see what's the definition, so we can, we need to change this, which I think we need to change the guidelines, as well as Mr. Weaver and probably everybody on the board. That's what we need to do.
I was just gonna say that, if, really, to get a question answered, I don't know if she's one of the architects from DHR, but you really need to talk to one of the architects that's on the DHR versus one of the staff people, because the architects are the ones that end up approving anything when they do the Department of Interior standards. That's who it goes through. And they're the ones that contact you back saying, yes, you can't do this and that, and tell you what you can and can't do. And they are ones that can tell you very quickly what the standing seam roof is. A general staff person probably is not going to have the expertise and not going to commit themselves enough to get smacked down later on. So I would suggest if you wanted to do this, to contact they have several architects on staff. Is talk to one of the DHR environment. I'm very familiar with a couple of the DHR architects that are real sticklers, and I'll be glad to give you names to talk to them, and they can give you a quick definition of what a standing seam roof is.
That's what we've been trying to search for the past 6 weeks.
I think we need to.
I mean, it's, again, as far as trying to back up what was installed from everything that we've researched, and the information we have was the same. There is a variation of it, but it's classified as a standing seam.
It never has been by the planners before.
Do you have a picture of what, I see it on.
Well, I mean, the roofs are.
Do you have a picture of the current roof?
Of the current roof, I have it on my phone, if you'd like to see it on the phone.
It also, by putting a modern roof also, it also devalues the property values in any house around it, because it's not congruent with the rest of it.
What it boils down to is what is the definition of a standing seam?
And that's the
Period.
definition. Standing seam.
Right, and if this is classified as a standing seam, then so be it. All right, knock it back, we're gonna look forward, modify the guidelines, even if we don't go through council to do so, make notes beside the guidelines going forward that every roof approved provides a sample, period. Standing seam is standing seam with flat panel because that was time appropriate for the architecture. My problem is these are ambiguous. They need to be revised. You do go through town, there are variations. The only answer I could suggest is, going forward. I've tried to gain clarification. Mr. Edwards, it's your understanding that roof is a standing seam roof, as recommended by Neil. Mr. Booth, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Staff has researched, the committee, that's classified as the standing seam. DHR, from what we found out, it's a broad issue.
Not with the architects.
Had the guidelines been written so that it stated the standing seam roof had to be a flat panel standing seam roof. That would have been a simple thing to have provided to my supplier, and, you know, I would have no problem if you're wanting to change the prospectively. Although, again, if you go through, you know, do a walking tour through the historic district, and, you know, after you look at all the deteriorated shingles, the 5B that's been put up all over the place, the standing seam roofs, anywhere from 25 to 40% of them have some kind of striations. There are, and the metal suppliers, both Mr. Booth and Mr. Lyons will confirm that a significant amount of roofing has been installed in the historic district here in Abingdon with striations in it.
Should we find out how much that is, please?
Well, yes.
If you don't mind, if you would, ask them how much has been installed in Abingdon. I'd like to know that through the historic district.
You can at least see something. You know.
Well, I mean, trying to look at the whole picture, I mean, it looks like several things have come together to cause this issue. And one being that I feel certain we probably, I mean, I don't remember that specific discussion, but we don't have.
I don't either.
We don't have the tape recorder now to know exactly what was said. I think personally, you know, when I say standing seam, I'm thinking of one thing, but clearly manufacturers are making things and calling them standing seams and labeling that, and that's, you know, I mean, the seam here, the thing that joins the two pieces of metal together appears to be a standing seam. It's the rest, it's not, there's, I guess, calling striations, or the part's not completely flat yet. And so, you know, that's a modern feature, but you know, I know always before, I know we've been very focused on this V5B, avoiding that, which I would call the kind of roof people put on barns. You know, where there's the join is the thing that the seam, there's not a standing seam, it's overlapping beams.
And the screws go through the panel.
And I remember that Delta Johnson was doing a building on Valley Street, and he came in, we approved, I think we called for standing, but he started putting up the 5B, and we caught it early, and he took it down and did standing seam. So that's traditionally been the kind of distinction we've been focused on. So you know, here we're in a quandary. We have a problem because we don't have a recording to know exactly what was discussed or said. All are going to have memories of maybe what was said or what was done, but we don't have the definitive version. We have a certificate of appropriateness that says standing seam. The manufacturer calls this standing seam. The seam is a standing seam, but there's things about it that make it a modern roof that make it not match what traditionally would have, when we say standing seam, what we're thinking of.
Right. The thing is that we're charged with maintaining historic appropriateness. And no disrespect to you, sir, but the roof is not appropriate for a couple of reasons. Mainly, it's not a flat panel. It's not what would have been put on that building originally. And yeah, it may be a standing seam roof with, you could just leave it at that. It may be a standing seam roof, but not historically appropriate for that structure. And the architect in me comes out, I don't even like the shine of it. You know, that wouldn't have been what you were seeing originally either.
And I agree with you, Mike. The problem presents itself, just like Byron alluded to. We don't have the minutes, we don't have wording, and there's nothing reflected relative to, just a minute, Mr. Herman. There's nothing reflected on the COA itself. It's been signed, and the guidelines specify standing seam.
Well, let's have a work session or something to make sure this doesn't happen again.
I agree.
I mean,
And-
we come together once a month for a couple of hours, but we never have any work sessions about what we think about the guidelines and such.
Well, you're exactly, but historically, we have worked on these guidelines over and over again, so it's not really a lack of work. I mean, this is something that needs to be addressed and does, but we have worked on the guidelines over the years repeatedly, but you know, these manufacturers keep coming up with things
It's
that
really
don't
a
necessarily get
I
specified.
don't want to say it's a fluid situation. Technology, as I alluded to earlier, they keep changing, they're classifying them under the same classification.
That doesn't mean we have to buy into their.
No, and I agree with you, and I think going forward, we just need to plot out an appropriate course going forward, saying, you know, when we say standing seam, it's standing seam, flat panel, because that is time appropriate for the architecture. Doesn't have anything to do with it costs more money, anything of this next objective. It was appropriate. That's what we're charged with. And so,
We can address the sheen, we can address all those things, which we probably should.
And where we put it, we need to make sure that it's published on our website. And of course, we'll go into all that when we get into the work session, but I strongly agree with you all on that.
And I think we also need to make a sample be part of the, you know, we talked
Any
about that.
submittal.
Yeah, submittal sample.
So, Mr. Edwards, I think the way the sentiment of the board, the roof is not your traditional standing seam in that it's not a flat panel. It's not appropriate. However, the roof is classified as a standing seam. If there was a mistake made, that falls back on this committee for not specifying with more specificity, you know, the exact standing seam. The guidelines need to be clearer. And these, a lot of work has gone into them, but a lot of work needs to go into them. I appreciate you being here, certainly, you know, didn't mean anything to be personal or anything of that nature. Please don't,
No.
you know, but
No,
there
it
was a question.
needs to be.
Well, it does, because again, the charge of this committee is to preserve the historic time-appropriate structures in the Abingdon area. That's a modern design. You know, and I agree with you, you can go around town, and there are different roofs that have striations. Fred Gypsy Holt, Goodman's, you know, are two examples, you know, that I've looked at. I'm sorry. All we can do, I think, our charge would be going forward, saying, okay, here was a loophole, a mistake, whatever you want to classify it as. Let's close it, and then go forward. Mr. Humphries?
One thing is I was gonna say, you can stay
No,
here.
no.
Mr. Giesler alluded to the fact that when Joe Johnson was putting on one that was not a flat panel roof, and they told him he couldn't do that. How long ago was that? They caught it early. Back in the 1990s, probably, 2000.
No, I think it was after 2000.
Okay, so it was after 2000, so it's been 17 years, probably at least, that the guidelines have been followed. You know, this is one of the only times it happened. But one of the things that Mr. Giesler said stuck out, and that was that early on, so that it wasn't pervasive, it wasn't done. The town was called. Jason can tell you, the town was called when there was less than a third of that roof put on. So then it is our fault. So then should we pay to put on the correct roof? You know, we didn't do our job. And it's incumbent on us to make sure that if we fail to have someone comply, then who pays the price on it? We just say, oh, well, we'll do better next time. Is that what our charge is? Or we haven't done anything that can be undone. And I remember that was told me one time too, when somebody put in 1940s lighting in a 1870 house on the outside. And so, I think that there was adequate time to stop this. There was adequate time to correct this. And we, as a town, did nothing about it, nothing. I don't know if the message filtered down to Jason or not, but I know that it was, when less than a third of the roof is done, then that is more than adequate, I would think. Enough time to put a stop work on and go, stop till we can figure this out. Stop so that we give Mr. Edwards a fair break so he knows that he can put it all up, and then we ask him to take it down. And that's the whole reason I called, was that I didn't want to call, is because I saw this being put up and it wasn't correct. So where does the blame actually lie? And who should pay for this? Or should it be corrected? I think where it is right now, you're looking at, it is just like having a wart. And I'm talking about for historic preservationists and people that know period things, which is a lot of people who do come to Abingdon because they come because of what we do have. And they look at that and they go, gosh, how did they ever let that happen? And it's a good one. Is how they look at it and go, how did they ever let that happen? Why would somebody do that? Let them do that. That's what they told Carl Mallory. You can't do that. It looks horrible. And that's right after he was doing it, after the Goodman did theirs. So I guess the bottom line is I still think, I think going forward is fine. And if you need to tighten the regulation, I think that's fine. But there's still some things to address about why that we didn't go ahead and stop it and put a stop order in when less than a third of it was done.
I have a question, if I may. Who did you contact?
Greg Kelly.
And how much of the roof had been done?
A third.
1/3 of the roof.
Yeah, that's what I call him. I don't know if you call Jason or not. I don't want to put Jason in the middle right now. So y'all can talk to him.
Okay.
So I called Greg.
Okay.
Please, I'm gonna ask you, Mr. Humphries, not as possible.
That's what you said. That's just what you
I'm
said.
gonna ask you very respectfully not to do that.
That's what I just said. I would not ask Jason. I was
Thank
him
you.
ask.
I appreciate that.
So,
Yeah.
anyway. But anyway.
That's, seemingly that is more of an internal
Yes.
issue.
Which would be
So-
ours, which would be our
Correct.
fault, which means that we should go back and
You need me
replace
to step
that.
out?
No.
No. Which means to me, we made a mistake. We should correct that. We should pay for that correction. It's our fault.
Okay, at this
So-
point though, well,
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Yes,
ma'am.
please, come.
I'm so sorry. You're my council member, and, this is just such a precarious position for anybody to be in, but I will say one thing. Our staff does the best possible job that we know how to do, and I am here, this is about my 57th hour this week, I think, that I have worked. And we do the best that we can do, but as we all are sitting on this board, we're all humans before we're anything else, and we do the best that we can possibly do. And I'm so sorry that you're mad that you think we're so inadequate, but you know
No,
what?
I didn't say that at all.
That's exactly what you're saying. I know
No,
exactly
don't
what
put
you're
words in my
saying.
mouth.
Well,
Don't put my mouth, please.
I'm gonna tell you that we did receive a call from Mr. Humphries, but after that, I don't have any information on how much of the roof was done. I know that we dispatched somebody out there as quickly as we possibly could, but I can't tell you that the result would have been any different because it was still classified by the manufacturer as a standing seam roof, and I'm not sure that we would have issued a work order. I can tell you that with 100% certainty. And so that's why I feel like that I just have to speak up and say, I feel like the town staff did exactly what they were supposed to do. And that's as far as I'm going to comment.
All right.
Thank you.
As Ms.
Ms.
Rosenbaum has alluded to the fact that the staff is doing that, the staff had, in the past, every standing seam roof had been approved, that standing seam roof. Irregardless of manufacturers, it was a flat panel, it was what was historically correct, and all the staff have done it exactly done it that way always before. Why the change, I would not know. She probably can answer that better than I. But it is something that for at least as we've looked at over 17 years has remained the same. It hasn't changed, hasn't varied, except for one case. And that case was asked to be made an exception, and it was, which was Goodman's. And then the case was asked to be not be. Was asked to have an exception, which was Carl Mallory's, was right beside, side by side, was turned down. So I know that the knowledge was there. I know the knowledge was there, which only leads me to believe that it was a lack of follow-through. If it hadn't been, we would have been able to compare apples and apples, standing seam, flat panel. So,
Well, I guess trying to think this through, I feel like in reviewing what the options are available to this board, what this board has authority to do, what this board doesn't have authority to do, I haven't looked at that in a while. I have looked at it in the past, but I haven't looked at it recently. I mean, I think, we have the ability to, if something violates our certificate of appropriateness, then we have certain remedies that we can do. That's, I think, not the situation here with what we're dealing with the facts of not having recording, not having something of discussion, having a certificate of appropriateness that says standing seam without that completely and fully defined in a way that would eliminate this. If we had the discussion, maybe that'd be a different thing, but I think we've discussed this enough to where I don't think we're in a position to say you violated our certificate of appropriateness and therefore you're going to have to change it. So then the remedy you're suggesting beyond that is, having the town in some way remedy this or take care of it. I'm not aware of this board having the authority to do that. Maybe we do, but I'm not aware of that. I mean, maybe it'd just be a recommendation or something we could do. I don't know. I think probably at this point, maybe it would be best if we could to table that till we could, or I mean, I don't know.
We can do. That is I think that's a separate and distinct issue.
I just don't.
And to be honest with you, I don't know what the appropriate course is for pursuing that. So that discussion, I believe, does need to be tabled. What we're dealing with right now, though, and thank Mr. Giesler, I think he hit the nail on the head, is we don't have the supporting evidence, so to speak, to say there has been a violation. And as such, all we can do is say, okay, we recognize there was an error as a committee. Let's don't make that error again. Twofold going forward, there will be samples provided with all COA applications relative to roofing materials. There will also, I'd like to make a recommendation that as part of the COA, when construction commences, staff is notified.
Yes.
That's a requisite. Put that as part of one of the requirements on a COA so that hopefully things do not fall. I understand staff, you've got individuals doing the jobs of 2 and 3. Everybody gets very burdened. If there are things that we can look at, that we can do things better, then that's what we need to do.
That was on my list.
Okay. That said, does that end this discussion, or does anyone want to add anything further? Hearing none, the item is which, with all due respect, I'm going to table, is the consideration of the ordinance. Deb is not here, and I would rather I'd like to have her present in the event we have any questions. So we'll table that for March meeting, assuming her health resumes. Other than that, are there any other matters that need to come before the board?
Yes, did you all receive the muster rounds issue?
We did,
I just want
and to be honest with you,
y'all are aware of it.
I think that's fantastic as far as eligibility for Regional National Historic Register.
Yeah.
That is something to be commended, and I know Mr. Humphreys has been very instrumental.
Supportive of it I think the council was very supportive of it the other night. And
Yes.
this is something that is so rare because DHR actually just did this of their own volition. We had nothing to do with it. And I think they said they were looking for projects. And so this was one that was on their radar, which I thought, never heard of that before, but.
Could we
it's
possibly
great.
get that up on the website too? Because
Yeah.
that's real important for
Yeah.
everybody to know.
It's a great thing, and I think the reason we wanted to bring it to you tonight, and it didn't get in the packet, is we've just gotten it, we talked to council, but we have to be able to send a letter affirming our support. And so what I was going to ask is that we, Greg or myself, prepare a letter on behalf of the HPRB, and your agreement with this and our excitement about the fact that it's going to be considered at their March 15th meeting, I think. So I think it goes to the state level first, and then it goes to the, is that how that works?
It is, ma'am, and it is a natural progression. So you look at it goes, DHR, and it is highly unusual that DHR would champion it themselves. That's something that usually comes out from the homeowner. But this also, the project, the muster gas was purchased, won the state award from every town and city in the entire state of Virginia for when it was first purchased, and the work that was done with the National Park Service and the partnering that the town did. The town they would seek out many partners to help with this, and that garnered it used to be called the I don't know, it's not just the Preservation Virginia, but it had a big fancy name before, and several of us went to Richmond and were presented the statewide award for that. And then after that step is made, then it is kind of a natural progression. It's almost I don't want to say it's a slam dunk, but pretty much is that it goes to the National Trust, and it becomes a National Historic Landmark. It's pretty. It's the same way with tax credits. If you get your state tax credits done, it's almost a slam dunk. You're going to get your federal ones done.
And I wanted to say I learned about the story about Kate Hurt and her wedding ring and the cake. Where I thought that was amazing.
Story,
yeah, and it goes to I could not believe that. I just loved it, and it got returned back. So that was.
Well, I mean,
that's one of many stories about that house.
That is fantastic news, and Mr. Humphreys and Town Council are to be commended. You know, the town in general. If you wanted to draft a letter and then send it, assuming the committee is.
Yeah, I move that we authorize the submission of a nomination on our behalf in accordance with the recommendation.
I second that.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Weaver? Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Easler?
Aye.
Mr. Neese? Aye. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Do you know, anybody know what the town's time frame is for coming back to us on the windows and columns at retirement?
Well,
Do you want to talk about that one
Yeah,
too?
you can.
Please, yeah.
They sent a letter this week, and I think we got it Monday, I believe. The columns are going to be approved, but they have to be the wooden columns, and you take the sections out and put back the sections. So that will be done, and then they approved the windows that what we had submitted. The only thing that didn't get done was the approval of the removal of the addition on the back. They want a lot more information on that before we.
I think the words were, it was approved in theory.
It's approved, that's exactly right, it was
But they
approved
wanted a
in
little bit
theory,
more
but we've got to send a lot of pictures and documentation, and Deb has actually been working from home on this particular thing, and has been on the phone. Then we've got to do a lot of pictures and photographs and that, so we hope to have that, moving along within
So
fairly
the
quick.
windows will be repaired but not replaced?
I'd have to look at my letter, but I think
Yeah.
that's right, I think they'll be repaired.
That's all the law. DHR will only allow
Repairs.
repairs. Now, if you have a structure that's more than 60% compromised, then they'll allow you to do a complete replacement. But on windows, they like for you to, if you can have two windows to add back to it, they would like for you to do those 2 or 3 pieces. And so I feel like I'm the one that threw the monkey wrench in when I came to that meeting with when Mr. Woolwine was here, and he was wanting to take down all the columns and replace them and stuff like that. But I did know what DHR had required in the past, and I didn't want to overstep our bounds because we have a conservation easement on that property. So.
Well, and I've been involved in projects that were National Register, and some guy, well-intended guy came in and replaced the windows on vinyl windows, and then we couldn't get money. So just for the town's benefit, I want to make sure it's done correctly.
And I don't know if anybody gets the Preservation Magazine on this board. It's something I would strongly suggest, Mr. Chairman, that you maybe talk to Mr. Boswell about putting everyone's name on that, because the Preservation Magazine, recently there's one that was a Stagecoach Inn, and they took the windows out of it, and I used Syndicate the other day. It was a foundation that had done it, and they did several years off, and they stripped it of its accreditation. So it no longer became historic property, no longer qualified for it. Lo and behold, the road comes in and wants to come through, and they couldn't get the money to move it because they didn't work the money. So they had to go and raise all of it by donations. So about $38,000, I think. It's in your need preservation.
No more business on the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Got a motion, second?
Second.
Got a motion, and a second?
Mr. Weaver? Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Geisler? Aye. Mr. Neese? Aye. Mr. Johnson?
Aye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good to see you again, and Raleigh.
Good to see you.